Hey guys, Andy again, spoken label, back in the house on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah, I am full of a cold still, and I know we'll change topics. It's been one of those bloody weeks this week, so but I know we're off to a wonderful part of the world today, off to the darkest, deepest parts of Surrey today. So we've got a wonderful writer with us today. Contacted me through Matchmaker.fm. Yeah, that which is an interesting package that one. 'Cause I do get some. I've had some interesting characters contact me this one. But this lady's brilliant. Been reading her book over the last couple of days and has really, really enjoyed this. We've got the wonderful Hannah Parry with us saying. Now, Hannah, I think it's only fair, first of all, because you're from Surrey nowadays and you moved over to England when you were very young. You weren't born here, were you? So,
No, no, it's so nice to see you. Thanks so much for having me on
pleasure.
here. Um, Not born here. No, born in New York, New York, New York. My mum was Canadian but her mum was American and she moved and her dad was English. So she moved to see all her dad's relatives. She moved to London when she was 17. So that was to work in advertising. So you know that TV show Mad Men? That's what my parents did. They were both in advertising. They
Oh,
worked in
wow.
London, then they moved back to New York, and that's where my sister and I were born. But New York in the 70s, I think, was a pretty harsh place, and they decided to come back to England, as you can
Yeah.
hear from the accents.
Yeah, it's not an that's not an
Yes.
American accent straight away.
No, you lose it quick when you're little.
No, that's fair play to you. That's so straight away. So now, that's it. We're going to touch a lot on writing today because you've done a couple of novels, and there's you've got a few of us on the go at the moment as well. But we'll come on today as a spoiler. Now, I want to learn first of all about where did all your creativity come from originally?
I think, as I said, both my parents were writers, but they were copywriters, so
Mm,
they wrote copy for commercials and ads, but they were both writers and they were big readers. And the only, I didn't do very well at school. In fact, I did really, really badly. But the only thing that I was really good at was reading, reading and English. And I did like my whole brain is English orientated. So I read a lot and I I think their influence obviously it's funny, a lot of the people that they worked with, those kids who are my age now as well, a lot of those kids are writers as well. So it must be some kind of stuff you pick up from your family. My sisters are right, both my sisters write actually, and my nephew writes, and it's so there might be a hereditary component, but also I think life throws you curveballs, and I think if you stick in a bit of trauma in there, if you're a writer, you will process it, or art or drawing or sculpting or whatever. That is probably how I would process. I didn't realize I write to find out what I think, and it's just me trying to work out the world. So that's I think some sort of weird things happened when I was younger, and I think I turned to writing in my early 20s as a way of trying to work that out.
yeah, can relate to that because I've been writing all my life, really, one way or another. But it got serious when I came diabetic when I was 39, was what, 14 years ago now. And it made it what was a bit of fun. It turned it very, very serious straight away. So I think you do sometimes there's got to be a trigger, haven't there, to really get you going with your writing. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that happens to. I've just heard it so many times, and it wasn't, from other writers that they were like, "Oh, this happened, that happened," and then there you. So if you're going to do it, I think the trauma kind of. I'm not saying you have to have trauma,
yeah,
right?
I
But it
agree.
sort of pushes you over the edge, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I know. There's me and Amanda have got this running joke about a very bad poet we met once, who wrote a poem out called "Trauma," and that's all she kept saying pretty well for 4 minutes. Trauma, trauma, trauma. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean there with that.
But I really
So yeah,
admire poets are amazing. I don't know how you write poetry. I was talking to a lady about that last week. Pretty impressive.
yeah, it's accent to me. I always was just. I think I won an award in it when I was at school when I was 10, and I'll just laughing it off basically it was, and it just seemed to stick me ever since, and really it did. But yeah, I said it's. last couple of years I've been a bit quieter because I'm doing other stuff now. But you do it's one thing always leads to another, I think, with creativity. Now,
Yes.
onto yourself then, because obviously I know you've got an adult book out at the moment, but before we do that, I want to talk about your other two books you wrote on the Isabella Rockwell Chronicles, first of all. So where did the idea for this series come from?
This it's it makes sense in light of what we've just talked about. She um I really loved reading. There's an author called MMK who's written, they're probably politically very incorrect, but actually they might not be, because they're very much on the side of the Indian people, because England, we colonized India, we basically took everything from India, and there was a huge war in 1857 where the Indians took back their country. And I read that during this war, a many of the Indian they called them ayahs. They were nannies, and they looked after English children. So you had a lot of children who were born and raised in India without having ever come back to England, ever having seen England, even though to all intents and purposes they were English. Um, and a lot of these women died protecting these white children against their country from their countrymen, and it really moved me. And I got the idea for this character of a girl who, also in light of what it was like when I moved to this country, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I remember it really clearly. Um, and the food was different. I didn't like the grandmother, the English grandmother. I didn't know her. I only knew my American grandmother. I didn't like the weather. I missed my, the ladies who'd been looking after me. I missed my school. I missed my, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, what would it be like to be a child and having India, this beautiful hot place full of the most amazing, amazing things, and to suddenly come back, rock up in London in the middle of winter? I mean, what a shock. So that's kind of where it started. And at the same time, my father, uh, my mother died very suddenly when I was 30. And then my father died about 6 years later, 7 years later. But for the final couple of years of his life, I was looking after him. And these two books are a way of processing his death, actually. So it's all woven through. Those two books are all full of loss, but they are about a character who is trying to learn to live by herself in an unfamiliar place, and that's kind of it, really.
No, fair play. Fair play. Obviously, I'm not going to get too much spoilers where there is more to come with this series. But when did you know it was going to be a series of books? Did you know that straight from the beginning?
No, well, no, I didn't. No, it wasn't until I was about three-quarters of the way through the first book that I suddenly thought, oh crikey, I haven't finished this story. There's still a lot more to it, and I I had the way it ended. Just sort of, oops, nearly lost my microphone. Just sort of led. I could see I could see further down the road, so I thought, well, that's okay. And then also, um, I couldn't get it traditionally published. I self-published it, and people were saying things to me like, "Oh, you need to have a series of books out if you're going to make any money in self-publishing." And although I believe that to be true, I hadn't. I think that basically, if I hadn't had an idea for the next book, I wouldn't have written it. I didn't do it just because I thought, okay, I'm going to have a series out, because it's taken me 10 years to write the third one,
Wow.
basically.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, you know what you mean with that. Because my first two book novels, and my first one, the second one's nearly done. They've took me 15 years to write between the pair of them. So I know exactly what you mean there with that.
No, I know. It's
It's,
extraordinary, isn't it?
it just, novels are strange things at the best of times.
You
And
know the book, The Book Thief by Marcus
I do.
Suzak?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
He he he's just brought out a new book, and there was one in between but he wrote The Book Thief, so that was quite a long time ago now.
It
He
was a
had
while ago,
7
eh?
years between The Book Thief and his next book. 7 years. So you're in good company.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Novels are strange things. Which is ironic, because I did 10 books of poetry in 14 years. Now that was fairly straightforward. Novels,
Yeah.
but yeah.
No, I know.
So I
I
know.
know.
So, but anyway,
Yeah. It yeah, I'm with you. There's so much I could say about that.
oh, I know. I think we could both go around in circles of that one. Definitely, we're sure of it. Now, Blaise, but I want to talk more today about your adult novel, which I have read and I thought was a tremendous book. This one he really got me with this straight away. He did. Breathing for Both of Us. Now, first of all, obviously, before we go on to about the story, what made you want to write such a different book next?
I think I got the idea for the character. I think I just wanted to I wanted to see if I could do it. I think there was an element of, can I do it? Because I'd always thought, even though people say, oh yeah, writing for children's harder than writing for adults, I just thought I'm not good enough to be able to do it. But then I just literally got the idea for the character of Gray Parker, and I was loading the washing machine, and I thought, imagine if you had a really physical job with a lot of walking around, and you were sort of physically unable to do that job because of at the time I had her as a very hugely overweight character, and that's what I was thinking about. But actually in the book it ends up that she's gone the opposite way. She has anorexia, and your your background was so heavy. You had an important job, like a pediatrician saving lives every day, and then you've got this loaded backstory that you're dragging along like a sack full of pots and pans behind you. How do you do that? And also then I thought about that character, and I wanted to know why she had all these pots and pans dragging along behind her. So I wrote to find out. I mean, that was it. So I know people say, well, what do you start with, character or plot? And that kind of sounds like it sort of starts with plot in a way, but really it's the character. It was her I was thinking about.
Yeah, I think both my novels were basically about the same character. It always started off in that case as the character. So what there's no one at B end and one at all end of any novels really. I think because like it's
Yeah.
some books you're going to write and you could ask about your previous 2 books on that, but like I said it's my first 2 are based about a character. The third one's not going to be. I know it's straight away, but yeah, there's no set pattern, is there really? So it's
No, I don't know how people separate the two. I know they say, oh, there's plot and there's character, and I kind of get that, but surely one informs the other, right? Because your characters, hopefully, they're running around doing things which develops the story. Well, that's what I'm aiming for. Sometimes that doesn't happen.
yeah, no, I know exactly. I know exactly what you mean with that. So now, obviously, yeah, where did the name? Where did you get the character from? Did it all just come together at one point? Did it, or did it come together over time with the character Dr. Gray Parker?
I completely ripped off Grey's Anatomy, and I didn't realize I was doing it. My daughter came up and she went, Mum, that's she's called Grey. And I went, is she? But I think it's her surname. And I made it that her full name is Grace, but her younger sister, who's a character in the book, calls her Grey. I think she calls her Grey when she's little. I don't know. So that's kind of how I thought I'll get round it. And Parker, I probably got that from Superman. But I think I just wanted something regular and English and very sort of normal.
Sam, that's brilliant. No, it's great. It's very great. Very, oh, they say great then. Very distinctive name, definitely. Now,
Do you
obviously,
like naming characters?
oh, I have great fun with it.
Yeah.
And one, it's like the title when I read title poems. They're usually the hardest thing to do. So I can read title in a poem, and I've done it before now when I've come with 14 different titles of poems, still don't get it right. And the same goes with the characters and books as well. So So now,
It's hard.
obviously, you researching this book, and we've been a doctor. I know you were trained as a doctor, a nurse, weren't you, as well at one point?
Yes. Yes. I was I was at King's College in London, and I was a paediatric nurse. So I trained all round St Thomas's and Guy's, and King's College Camberwell, and I did paediatrics. So I did children's nursing, which is a separate branch. So you kind of do all your training together as the biology stuff at the beginning, but then you specialize. So I'm not qualified to look after adults. I'm only qualified to look after children. And I ended up working at St Mary's Paddington on the infectious diseases ward there, which I absolutely loved. It was my top favorite job, and it was all mostly HIV and meningitis. We had an intensive care unit next door that led through to our unit. We're high dependency, and we'd also take malaria, tuberculosis, anything with a temperature that they didn't know what to do with would come to us. So we had all sorts of, yeah, all many different things going on.
Yeah.
Sort of, you know, things like appendix and broken legs and stuff would go next door, and we would get in my opinion, the kind of interesting cases. Yeah.
The gritty stuff, as they call
The
it, don't you?
gritty stuff. But the people always go, God, how do you? What people don't realise is that even though we had some of the, you know, the sickest of the sick, children don't die very often because we throw everything we've got at it. You know, it's not like looking after a 55-year-old. You know, if it's a 3-year-old, we try so hard. I know I shouldn't say that, and I'm not saying that we don't try hard with 55-year-olds, but if it's a child, you know, we take care of them. So in actual fact, and children get better really quickly. They get ill very quickly. They go downhill really fast, and it's all hands on deck. But then they get better. The next thing you know, they're playing football in the corridor.
Yeah, before you know it, definitely. No, it's true. True. That's where children are, because the recovery rate is so quick. You know, they go ill all the time. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean with that. So, yeah. So we were children ourselves once upon a time, definitely. So I know what's going well. So now I've got to be, obviously, tell us next about the journey of this book itself. Did it change much from when you originally developed it to the final version?
Yeah, massively changed. I mean, I basically rewrote it. And you were talking about having found something the other day that you've kept those 15,000 words because you think it might be something else. I wrote a whole manuscript. It was a crime thriller. She was not a pediatrician. She was she was a pathologist. So she was looking at the body after death. So that character, she was hugely overweight, and it was a crime that her boyfriend had committed. So it was completely 70,000 words of something else. You know, I don't know what that was, but it's sitting in that folder. But I kept hold of her and brought it round, and I got onto a course in London, the Curtis Brown creative course, and I ended up writing what I would call the second draft, but actually it was just a second book really on that course with support from other writers, and which was incredibly helpful. And that and all, I think it was, I had to write it twice because a lot of the backstory is quite dark, and I think to allow some of that backstory to come through, I had to do it twice. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
once was the front story, and then the second part was I was bringing forward all the stuff that was behind the character.
Yeah, no, I get it completely. It's understandable what you do. It's, I think sometimes you need to actually write a load of rubbish to actually get to the good stuff, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah, no, I get it completely with that one. So now I don't want to give too much away here. No, in fact, we'll do this around. I want to talk about the cover next, because you told me pre-recording about the story of the cover with this book. Because people see the cover in this book, it had me sat there thinking, if I'd seen that in Waterstones, I'd have bought it on the spot without even looking. at the actual back of the book itself, which is fantastic anyway. But you tell me about the journey of this cover, because this is how you track somebody down, didn't you, about this?
I did. Because I knew I was going to self-publish this one after it had a bit of a sort of rocky start. The lads had done the cover for the Isabella Rockwell books, because it was a medical thriller. We looked at all the medical thrillers, and they all looked, they had red jagged writing and they had yellow jagged writing, and they all looked very thrillerish. And even though this is a thriller, I didn't want it to be so obvious. So I just went to Instagram and I was looking at cover art, and this lady's, I think you can just literally go and search on Instagram. You can put book cover designers, and they're all over Instagram. And I just went through until I saw one that I emotionally resonated with, that feeling that you get in your chest, and you think, oh, hang on, these are really good. And I got hold of her. What was fantastic was she was expensive, but I could afford her. She wasn't sort of thousands and thousands, I could afford her, and she got that cover maybe the second suggestion she made, she got it right. I just explained to her, you give her the synopsis, I explained to her the feelings behind the book, and she came back with that, and I was blown away by it. And her name, I wish I should look it up, but her name is Elena, and she's on 99 Designs, and she's one of their, I think they have a sort of premium group of designers. So if you look in the sort of premium group on 99 Designs, her first name is Elena, and she's outstanding. And actually, if you click on her, you should see the cover is on her grid, so you'll be able to identify her that way.
Noted, everybody. Check it out. Honestly, I'm not going to go more detail, but the cover is absolutely. I said it off. It was that good. So now
Thanks.
I'm going to be a bit facetious next now, because now I want people to read the book. So that goes without saying. But there's what Hannah's done here, and this is the poet in me that absolutely. I don't know how you're going to phrase this, Hannah, but without giving too many spoilers away, I loved the way the title actually comes directly into the book right towards the end of it. And that's all I'm going to say, but without giving too much away. But when did you know this was going to be the case?
I read Wolf Hall in, 20. I don't think I read it immediately it came out, but I think I read it in about 2017. And I remember, oh no, I didn't read it. I listened to it, and I remember it ended. And it ended, I was so incensed that she could be so brilliant, Hilary Mantel. I was so impressed and amazed. And I think at that point, I was 3/4 of the way through Breathing for Both of Us, that I knew without a shadow of a doubt I was going to completely copy what she'd done. And I think from about 3/4 of the way through the book, there was something that happened at the end of Breathing for Both of Us, which I wasn't expecting to happen. But once I'd got through that, so that was a really nice thing that happened. Once I'd got through that, I knew, I had known from the beginning how I was going to end the book, what was going to happen at the end. It was just a case of getting the dialogue right so that the ending, basically, I copied Hilary Mantel, so I might as well start at the top, right? If you're going to rip somebody off, it might as well be her. So,
well, if you're gonna be influenced by somebody, I always say, rather than ripped off, you do it with the good people. Definitely with that one, right?
But I is ripped off though, because I just kind of went, yeah, I'm going to do it like that, and just exactly do it like that.
No, fair play, fair play.
But
Seriously.
I know you have to kind of. I allowed it. Yeah, it was all right, because actually the ending was sort of done anyway, and I just had to put that little bit and try and just be. I was never sure whether I pulled it off or not until people started to read it, and I thought, okay, this is okay.
Yeah, you definitely pulled it off of that one. I've said before already with that one. So now, okay, there's a couple of I want to talk about a few general bits of writing today before we go on to what's happening next, because you've had a couple of quite fascinating little stories here, which I think people should know about anyway. And I heard on another podcast, which I'm not going to name, which was very good, was really good. But there's a very good story going on about you and the BBC Short Story Award that I think you should be telling people. Look, I think this is absolutely hilarious, but I think it's worth
It's
hearing as
hilarious,
well.
isn't it? So lockdown, right? So we're all writing away in lockdown, aren't we? And I wrote a short story which had the idea for about 4 or 5 years. I wanted to know, so I wrote that short story. I get a list of all the short competitions every month that are open, and the BBC Short Story Award came up, and it's for published writers. Okay, published means you've got to have been published not online, you've got to be in press somewhere. So in a book, in a magazine, short story in a magazine is fine. That's, and all I had was one short story in a anthology that was published by the place that I did my master's. So it was published by Birkbeck. They came, so I put all of that, and I put and they very embarrassed email came back saying, "We're terribly sorry, but we can't find you published anywhere." And I said, "Yeah, don't worry, don't worry." They said, "Have you got any evidence?" And they were so embarrassed. You could feel the assistant at that end going, "Oh my God, oh my God." And so I had to take a photo of my name. I had to take a photo of the book cover. I had to take the photo of the contents and the copyright and the whole thing. And I sent those back to them. And they were going, "Okay, thank God for that. Okay, that's fine." Da 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 da. Went like that, completely forgot about it because I enter loads of things and forget about it because that's probably the best way to be. And blow me down. I was longlisted. They sent me the nicest email. They said, "We just wanted to let you know you made the top 50. There were of 1,010 entries of these of published authors." So I'm talking about, people who I would consider better than me. So to make that, to get that was just such a shot in the arm. And they said, "Please feel free to use this in all your socials." So of course I've run with that, and it just looks so nice on my, long list 2021 BBC Short Story Award. Yeah, really meant such a lot to me, and so kind of them to write and say, "You've made the top 50, that you got that far." Yeah, that was it really.
That's still a great story. So now the other story I want to touch on as well is about, oh, blimey, I don't know where to even go with this one. About one that you got dropped by your publishers and you're in hospital having about to get told you're on an operation on the same day.
Nice.
Honestly, this is like a comedy sketch. This one nearly.
Yeah. So still in lockdown, right? Maybe I got the short story award long list because it was a compensation. But I had got, so Breathing for Both of Us, the one that you had mentioned that we're talking about, that got me my first agent. And I, before lockdown, I met her. It was sort of January 2020. I thought she was fantastic. I really liked her. She and I got on like a house on fire. I mean, it was like a dream. It was a dream come true, actually. The book, bearing in mind it's a dark story about the NHS, went out to publishers in March 2020. So not great timing. It actually went out to publishers the week Boris Johnson got admitted to hospital, and the whole country was, holding its breath, thinking he was going to die. And all the publishers came back to Emily and said, "I'm sorry, this is too dark for the time," with one eye on marketing. And I sort of took that on the chin because times were hard, and I went off and wrote 20,000 words of the new book, sent it to her in the November, and she came, and just as it it was that very early time in December that you were allowed to go out, and I had had a dodgy scan, and I had to go. I was sitting in the gynecologist's waiting room because I would had this dodgy scan, and I got an email from Emily saying, "I'm terribly sorry, my mother's died. I'm going a completely different direction with my agency. I'm not taking on any. I'm not. I'm letting go of my fiction writers. I'm just going to concentrate on non-fiction." She did a lot of non-fiction very successfully. She said, she said all the lovely, nice things. And I remember just thinking, oh, crikey, what do I do now? It's taken me so long to get her. And then just at that moment, I was called into the gynecologist's office, and she sat down and she went, "Well, Hannah, you're going to have an operation." And I just thought, oh, of course I am. Of course I'm going to have an operation. And that was, that was my, worst. That was my COVID lockdown story. And I'm sure everybody's got one. But it was a very small operation, so I've got nothing to moan about. I'm very lucky that it was sorted out. And publishing that's where, at that point, I thought, oh, I could keep going and looking for another agent for it. But you know what? I think I'm just going to do it myself. I've done it twice before. I'm going to do it myself. The next one, which is just as well, because nobody wanted the next one, I'll publish that hopefully by Christmas.
Yeah, I've gone through, I've got my own agent stories, and Amanda, my wife's got several dodgy publisher stories, which I'm certainly won't be repeating on air. Because I'll tell you about them afterwards, Hannah. One of them was a shocker as well. So yeah, I've had near misses, to put it bluntly to yourself. But yeah, I'm saying completely with it. Do you believe in? Obviously, like I said, even if you've had a couple of setbacks like that, I know it's never stopped me, because I think you get very single-minded. I think, don't you, as writers sometimes?
Yes. I think that particular year made me just want to. I finished the Baby Exchange, the one, the 20,000 word. I just cracked on with that, and I thought, right, this is it. I'm going to get an agent with this. And I'm going to focus on it. And I went and focused on it, and I couldn't get it. Nobody wanted to touch it with a barge pole, and but it took a lot of heart searching for me to let go of the idea, because I had to really understand that, you know what, what I really want is for people to read what I've written. It doesn't matter how that happens. It doesn't matter. And isn't it so much better that I can be in control of it? And I can, as soon as I finish this script and Nicola sorts it out for me, it's up and it's loaded and it's ready to go, and it's available to readers within a week. If you go traditional publishing, I'd have to sit, it would be a year and a half before it would be out and available. I'm never going to make a living out of this, but people they're reading what I've written, and that gives me such a kick. That's what I'm doing it for. I write for myself first, because I write a book that I want to read myself, and then I'm writing for somebody who just wants to read a good story. That's what I'm doing.
Same for me, because I'm exactly the same on that. It's kind of put me off after what I'm gone through publishers, and who knows? I'm not saying I may not, I may go over publisher in the future. Who knows? But not at the minute. And it's sometimes I think the way reading taste changes well. Sometimes in the public, 18 months, the impetus can be lost. I think almost, can't it? Like it's every major publisher like that, and it's what may be cutting edge now, maybe old-fashioned in 18 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I don't know about you, you're a bit younger than me, but I could easily have forgotten half of what I've written 18 months ago. You'd be sitting there going, asking a question, what happened to so-and-so, this character's, handbag that he left on the tube? And I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm exactly like that. Someone could ask me, "Oh, what made you want to write this book, Andrew?" No, I don't remember. I slept since then, mate. That's what I'm always like with that. So now, obviously, looking at the time, I want to give you time. You want to give you a chance to a bit of reading for us today as well. But obviously, there's a couple of things we need to wrap up with, really. Now, you've already dropped a hint already. Your next book's going to be The Baby Exchange, which is nearly complete now. So now, I don't want to give too much away because of the books. You've not announced a date for it yet, but I know it's in them fairly imminently. So, what can you reveal about this book?
Oh, I can tell you all about it if you I
Yeah,
can
sure.
reveal
Yeah,
about
I'm.
it.
If you're happy at that, I'm happy at that. But
Yeah,
like I said,
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
I know some writers are like, oh no, I can't give too much away yet.
No, I can. Um, I had, again, it's one of those things that comes to you. I had a friend whose niece uh was at Waterloo Station. She was 17 and she got off the train, and my friend's sister-in-law turned to look at her, and at Waterloo Station the light comes in very clear at the back of the station, and this young lady was wearing a slightly transparent dress, and the lady, her mum, turned and looked at her, and she looked at her outline, and she went, "Oh my God, she's pregnant." Now, the 17-year-old had no idea she was pregnant, and she actually went on to give birth. I think it was about 6 weeks later.
Wow.
And I looked up, it's called a cryptic pregnancy, and it's 1 in 400 births are cryptic pregnancies, which I find absolutely fascinating, that nature finds a way, you know. And what happens is that the female, the mum, shuts down, the brain shuts down all the physical symptoms. So it's all a huge amount of denial. But also, what can also happen, I hope there's not too much information, but when you're on the pill, you stop taking the pill for a certain amount, sort of 4 or 5 days, so that you have a regular period, and then you go back on the pill. And so the pill is regulating your cycle, but it's not infallible. So you can still be having a cycle, but you can actually be pregnant, but the pill is still allowing you to have a cycle. And it happens all the time.
Yeah,
So I
happened
had
to.
that.
I know someone that happened to actually, John, as well. And the first time she knew she was pregnant was when she was in hospital giving birth.
I know that's
Yeah,
that's most difficult. These poor people who go to literally they go to the loo, or they think they're being sick or something, and they deliver, and that must be extraordinary. And it also happened to a friend. Once you start, you hear about it a lot. You know, my daughter's friend from school, same thing happened. I think she was about 2 weeks before she was due. Um, and then I was also watching Love Island with my daughter. I wasn't watching it. She was, well, no, I was watching it, right? I was watching it. And I, I really, I really struggle with reality television. I've watched a lot of it because I'm watching to try and see what it is about it that people are interested in. And I get why. I get why they are, because it's hilarious. I started at the beginning of Love Island. I'm going, I'm not watching that. I'm not watching that. And by the end of the series, I'm going, what's happened to so and so and so and so, I wondered, there was a show where in America where a woman was auditioning men to be sperm donors, and I wondered, how big a leap is it for us to go to a reality TV show where you would audition people to take your baby if you didn't want your baby. So now I've got the character who has a baby, and who has a baby she doesn't want. She very much doesn't want this baby, but there's nothing she can do about it. She has to deliver the baby. And then I lived in Los Angeles for a couple of years in my adulthood, and so I have experience of it. And I just thought, I wonder if there would ever be about a TV show with celebrities who want to adopt children from these young mothers. Some of them are surrogates, and some of them are like my main character, who are having a baby that they weren't expecting. So, and they make it into it's not a game show, it's kind of a documentary series. So that's what it's about.
that's fascinating.
Sounds,
Again, completely different to your other books as well. So,
yeah,
it's. I'm guessing as well that would have been quite a major challenge for you to jump from one genre to another, then another again altogether, isn't it? So,
yeah. But I think I like doing the baby exchange, because although it's got some of my own issues in it, it doesn't have anything like as many of my own issues as the breathing for both of us. You know what I mean? I feel like I've written all my stuff away, and now I can just concentrate on the story.
Yeah, you can lie more now then, can't you?
Yeah, yeah, that's probably it. Exactly.
Definitely with that one. Now, obviously, when this book's done, I know you're telling me off mic before as well. The third one in the Isabella Rockwell trilogy will be following probably in about a year's time as well, won't it?
Yeah, yeah. I'm really hoping to have finished that first draft. I've plotted the first half, and once I've plotted the second half, I plot because I worry that I'm not very good at plot. So I need something I can kind of hang stuff on. And once I've done that, then the writing is not the problem. You know, the writing is okay, but then sometimes it's hard to shoehorn it around the plot, you know, but then I'll worry about that later. But yeah, I'm hoping very much if I could get it out by this time next year, I'd be really happy, because then that trilogy would be finished. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
definitely. Fingers
yeah,
crossed for that. And obviously, I can't ask you yet because you've not started it, but I can envisage it'll be really weird going back to that third book in that series after doing two adult books basically as well.
yes, yeah. I'm sort of thinking, gosh, I hope I can. I thought if I read the other two, the first two, to just get that voice back, but I hope it's going to be all right. But in a way, I'm really looking forward to it, because it's just complete and utter escapism. It takes place in India. You know, it's just thriller, daring do, swords, horses, dogs. You know, that's I love all that stuff. You know, I'm not.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
so
no,
I'm
it's
looking forward to it.
I think it will be like it's like you return to see an old friend again, and sometimes it's good when you've had two of us almost like rainy day projects. You're going back to that again and to see the lay of the land is. We're not definitely
Yeah,
so. No, good luck both of them. Definitely so. Keeps
thank
informed.
you.
So now, okay, on to where if people want to read up more about you, Hannah, where do you recommend they go?
Um, if they could go to my website, that would be the perfect spot, which is www.hannahparry.com.
Brilliant. I know you're on Linktree as well, which I'll put on the actual thing as well. I know you've got a Facebook page and an Instagram page as
Yep,
well.
yep,
So they'll all be in the write up as well. So
yeah.
brilliant.
And if anybody wants to talk about books, Goodreads is I'm always on Goodreads, hanging out, looking at books, reviewing books badly, you know,
Join the
adding
club.
books, taking them away, you know.
Yeah. Join the club for that one, definitely that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can relate to that. Now, obviously, books themselves can be got on Amazon and I presume all good and evil, as I always say, good and evil and
Yeah.
news booksellers, can't they?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Brilliant.
And
Oh,
the only place you can get the electronic version though would be Amazon. So
of course,
that's
yeah.
on Kindle. Yeah.
Of course, brilliant. Okay, well, that's all my questions for part one. So we're going to take a quick break here, folks, and we'll be back in two shakes of the dice. Hannah is going to do a little extract from her novel. Been a pleasure, Hannah. I've really enjoyed this today. It's been great fun. So,
Yes, I have too. This is like, maybe it's Joey. He was absolutely brilliant, but you're, I suppose, more relaxed. I think I feel more relaxed with you. Maybe I've done a few more. Maybe I
yeah,
feel
it's
better, but
probably
this is really nice.
it could well be that, don't you? I always, on the side off, we had to stop the pause recording. I always say a spoken label. I treat it as a conversation. Oh, don't forget conversation, a chat between friends.
Mm.
That's some cases I've never met before. So
Oh,
that's where I was looking at it to have a laugh basically as well. So
that
right,
exactly.
we wrap up here, people. Let Hannah go and take another quick swig of coffee and she composes herself because I've got an easy part too. She hasn't. We'll see you all in two shakes of